beautiful to see you all this morning. Beautiful song. Are you ready to go deeper? So this, every now and then a song kind of follows me around. I guess that probably never happens to you, right? The other thing is, Saturday nights, I will put a piece of paper and a pen by my head, just as a way of kind of inviting spirit. If there's any particular message that might come to me in the middle of the night, I can just lean over and jot it down. So guess what came to me? What I found on the paper this morning was Moonshadow. Yes, I'm being followed by a moonshadow. Moonshadow, moonshadow. You remember it? You just don't feel like singing this morning, huh? A leaping and up and on a moonshadow. Moonshadow, moonshadow. Yes, it was. Well, you know, he was Cat Stevens back then, and now he's Yusuf. But I want to share with you, kind of throughout the message today, some of the lyrics from that song that you may not realize. You know, that's the thing. We all kind of get into that moonshadow part, but we don't know what the rest of it is saying. So one young fellow listened very intently. We're talking about a really young fellow. Listened very intently to the pastor one particular Sunday morning. Afterwards, he asked his father, why was the pastor talking about ducks? His father said, oh, I don't remember that he was talking about ducks. And the boy said, oh, yes, he did. He said that life is a pair of ducks. Oh, his dad replied, yes, you mean paradox. I think he was talking about two doctors. Oh, that got some chuckles and a few moans. A group of college faculty gathered for their weekly meeting. A professor of archaeology brought with him a lamp recently unearthed in the Middle East. It was reported to contain a genie who, when the lamp was rubbed, would appear and grant one wish. Well, a professor of philosophy was particularly intrigued, so he grabbed the lamp and he rubbed it vigorously. Suddenly a genie appeared and made him an offer. He could choose one of three rewards: wealth, wisdom, or beauty. Without hesitating, the philosopher said, wisdom. And the genie said, done, and disappeared in a cloud of smoke. All the other faculty members turned toward the professor, who sat surrounded by a halo of light. At length, one of the colleagues whispered, say something. What wise insight do you now have? And the professor, much wiser now, sighed and said, I should have taken the money. Think about it. What would you choose? Think long and hard about it. I had the pleasure of watching a TEDx video recently, and it was by a man named Robert Hogue. And he was basically telling his life story in that little 15-minute window of opportunity that you have with TEDx. And his story is that he was born with, and so had a tumor growth even before he was born. So he was born with this growth, and it came down in between his eyes, so his eyes were actually separated out. And then really his nose was quite protruded, and so his mother actually left him at the hospital. She wasn't sure about taking him home. And after a couple of weeks of sharing it, really talking about it with family and friends and professionals, she went back, she brought him home. After a series of, as you can imagine, surgeries, very difficult surgeries, there was some improvement. And then at the age of 14, the doctors said, we really think that we can make a significant improvement on your deformities. We can bring your eyes closer together and just clean up some of the scar tissue and all. The problem is that you may also lose your sight. Well, being good parents, they said to their son, you're 14, you're old enough to make this decision yourself. I'm not sure whether that's good or bad, but that's actually what we're going to be talking about today. This whole thing, good, bad. So he's sitting and he's having this discussion with his parents, and his brother is sitting alongside of him, a little older than him. And apparently he had asked the genie for some wisdom because he said, in his infinite wisdom, what good is the beauty if you can't even see yourself? And it was with that comment that Robert chose not to pursue more surgery. And you would notice that he had facial issues, if you saw him on the street. So again, what would you choose? What would you choose? A Sunday school teacher who had held up a portrait of Jesus explained to her class that it was not an actual photograph of Jesus, but an artist's conception of what he looked like. Well, a very precocious little girl said, "But you've got to admit it looks a lot like him." Have you ever noticed how attractive Jesus is? Come on, girls, you have to admit it. Guys, girls, all of you. So, what is this thing with, I actually refer to it as lookism. You may have heard of that before. Out of all the isms, it's probably just as harmful. And here, I went ahead and looked up the definition of it. Lookism. Prejudice or discrimination based on physical appearance, and especially physical appearance believed to fall short of societal notions of beauty. So here we are. So much of the isms are done unconsciously. And so it is just becoming aware that we do it, that we might be doing it, which is probably the biggest and the largest step. No matter what the ism is, we all do it. Okay? We all do it. And so an invitation today is to begin to wonder And you don't have to have the answers. Isn't that great? You don't have to, when you ask a question, it does not have to be answered. It can just open you up to more awareness or possibilities. Is it possible that when I see someone who doesn't meet the societal expectations of beauty that I quickly look away? Maybe I'm scared to look at them. Maybe I'm afraid they'll think I'm staring. And probably what they need more than anything is for us to have eye contact with them and smile. When I was an infant, you know what infants do with everything they pick up in their hand, right? I somehow got my hands on a razor blade. And being an infant, that's what I did. I put it in my mouth. And before my parents realized, and of course, very urgently, removed it from my mouth. Didn't cut up my hands, didn't cut up my tongue, but if you've ever been real close to me, you will notice that I have a scar that goes about an inch up here, that indeed my mouth was cut open. And my mom admits, you know, the first thing she thought was, oh, my beautiful baby, she's going to have this awful scar. And yes, I have a scar, and I think it's beautiful. Thank you, Ed. Yeah, so what if it really did? What if it had really messed up my face? Would I be here now? I wonder. Would you still be able to love me? The other thing I did a lot of, and maybe you did too, as a youth, was sunbathing. Anybody else? And of course, Rosemary, I love you. Of course, we know the dangers now, and some people still do it. And, you know, somehow I've managed, at least for now, not to have had any repercussions of that. But I mean, I was serious about that because it was so the thing to be tan. And I really don't tan without burning first. Which leads me to the next thing that I experienced as a young person. At the age of 12, I started to get cold sores. Anybody else get cold sores? Yeah, well, usually they come on your mouth or in your mouth or something, but mine came on my nose. On my nose, around my nose. I mean, big sores. And if you've ever had a cold sore, you know that they're very, very painful. And I wasn't one to stay at home and be shy, although I was extremely embarrassed about it. Extremely embarrassed. And, you know, you might be thinking, well, you get a cold sore once every, I don't know, a couple times a year maybe. No, Natalie got them every month. Wanting to go to parties, wanting to, do that thing. But what's the matter with Natalie? Natalie, what is that on your nose? There's a new show out. Barry came across it the other day on TLC, and we're hooked. It's called Body Parts. And it is it's about a woman who is an anaplastologist. I think I'm saying that right. She creates prosthetics for people. And she's been doing this for many, many years, and she admits that one of the most frequent prosthetics that she is making are ears for children who have been mauled by dogs. And so we actually got to meet on the television. This one particular show was about a young boy who had been mauled and lost both of his ears, did not lose his hearing, but lost both of his ears at a very young age. And she had him there at the age of 10, and she gave him ears. Beautiful ears. I mean, ears are beautiful. But for this child, you know, who had had the experience of the bullying, because he did not look like societal's expectations of what we look like. And we can't blame ourselves too much. I mean, the majority of people have 2 ears. And then there was the gentleman who got nose cancer and had his nose removed completely. So where there was and is a nose for you and I, there was a hole for him. So just sit in that for a moment. Lookism. How do you react when someone comes towards you and they have a hole where a nose should be? With deep compassion, I'm sure. But he got his nose. Amazing. And then a woman who became ill, and during the time that she was unconscious, she did not have any circulation in her hands or her feet. And so when she came out, out of her coma, they had to amputate both hands and feet. And she said that as soon as she got her legs for her feet, they showed her running with these prosthetics. Isn't that amazing? I mean, ever since they came out with these fandangled, prosthetic legs, I've thought, hey, I don't care about losing my legs. I'll just get some of those fancy things and run around on them. It's easier said than done, right? But the sad thing for her was that she had no hands, and she had a child, and her child wanted to hold her hands. So she had come to this amazing place to get hands, and she got some amazing hands. Lookism, body parts. So a verse from Moonshadow. And if I ever lose my legs, I won't moan and I won't beg. Oh, if I ever lose my legs, oh, if I won't have to walk no more. If I ever lose my mouth, all my teeth, north and south. Yes, if I ever lose my mouth, oh, if I won't have to talk. Yes, I'm being followed by a moon shadow. Moon shadow, moon shadow. Leaping and hopping on a moon shadow. Moon shadow, moon shadow. And if I ever lose my hands, lose my plow, lose my land, oh, if I ever lose my hands, oh, if I won't have to work no more. And if I ever lose my eyes, if my colors all run dry, yes, if I ever lose my eyes, oh, if I won't have to cry no more. And it goes on. Did it take long to find me? I asked the faithful light. Oh, did it take long to find me? And are you going to stay all night? I'm being followed by a moonshadow. Moonshadow, moonshadow. A medical doctor, W. Baron Wolf, once wrote, "If you observe a really happy person, you will find him building a boat, writing a symphony, educating his children, growing dahlias in his garden, or looking for a dinosaur egg in the Gobi Desert. To find happiness, we must seek for it in a focus outside ourselves," which is exactly the opposite of what we teach here on Sunday mornings, isn't it? We say, if you are going to be happy, it starts in here. But maybe if we do enough work in here, maybe if we recognize our wholeness and our completeness and our perfection, no matter what we look like on the outside, we feel more whole to be out and giving. We feel more complete and able to serve and to give and to do big things, like writing a symphony. Amazing. There's a little children's book about a couple in Sussex, England, who were buying a new teacup. The wife said to her husband, "Look at this one. It's beautiful. I want to buy it." But since this was a children's book, the teacup talks, right? So the teacup said, but you know, I wasn't always beautiful. And the couple said, or actually the teacup went on to say, "Originally I was," think about it, clay, a soggy, ugly, damp lump of clay. They put me on a wheel, and they started turning that wheel until my head became dizzy, and then they started to poke and prod, and it hurt, and I cried out, "Stop!" But they said, "Not yet." At long last, they did stop the wheel and put me into a furnace. It became hotter and hotter until I thought I could not stand it any longer, and I cried, "Stop!" But they said, "Not yet." Finally, they took me out of the furnace, and someone started to put paint on me. And the fumes from the paint made me ill. It made my head swim, and I cried out, "Stop!" But they said, "Not yet." When at long last they had finished painting, they put me back into the furnace, and you know what happens next. And finally, they took me out of the furnace, and after I had cooled down, they placed me on a tabletop in front of a mirror. I remembered myself as a soggy, ugly, damp lump of clay. When I looked at my image in the mirror, I lost my breath, and I said in amazement, "I am beautiful." And then I knew that it was only the pain that I went through that had made it possible for me to be so beautiful. Can we handle the pain of becoming beautiful? The answer is yes. Let's say it together. Yes. Oh, you know what? I said you don't have to answer the question, so you're not answering because you're just opening to the possibilities. I think I'm going to end there, but I'm going to end by saying, if I ever lose my mouth, all my teeth, north and south, yes, if I ever lose my mouth, if I won't have to talk. So let's have a time of meditation, shall we? just to take these questions and these experiences a little deeper. We're on a journey of self-awareness. That's really the first step to that path of awakening and enlightenment. As the master teacher Jesus experienced, as Gautama Buddha experienced, many teachers throughout history. Awakening to our beauty and our ugliness, and being able to accept them both. Wow. Can we do that? And we don't know what lies ahead on this path, on the road ahead of us. We do know that there will be bumps, some larger than others. But we remember that the light has found us, that the light is within us, that we can never be lost from the light. In fact, we are the light. I invite you to take a deep and loving breath as you shore up your shoulders and put your chin up. Ready. Get ready, my soul. I'm diving in. And yes, there may be things that I will need to give up, things that seem very important right now. And I might be inclined to say that's bad. But in my spiritual wisdom that is behind the personality, behind the ego, behind all of the isms in the world, there's a knowing that my path is perfection. The highs, the lows, the perceived mistakes, the joys, the grief. Through it all, my soul is pleased. It is well, as they say, with my soul. It is well. It is well with my soul, with your soul. As we go forth now into the rest this day and into this new week, we walk with greater awareness. We walk with a greater understanding of Spirit living and moving and having its being in us. Knowing we live, move, and have our being in it. So it is. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.